What is up, AlienARMy? I'm Oculus, the alien next door, purveyor of esoteric lore. And today, our esoteric topic, we are going to be talking about what do the planets mean in esoteric astrology. So essentially, we're covering esotericism and we're covering esoteric astrology. So this video is very fitting. Now, keep in mind a previous knowledge of personality astrology, regular astrology is recommended. Just a generalization that you know the basics of that before we proceed into this. Okay, so if that is you, then keep on watching and we'll get into this chit chat. So in my other videos that I have about esoteric astrology, which you can check out on my channel, we are getting into the fact that esoteric astrology is using the same placements as personality astrology, okay? Aside from the fact that we added 2 new planets, okay? We added Vulcan and we added Earth. And don't worry, you know, I didn't go over them in any of my videos, but this is what we're doing this for. We're going to get into them today. So Vulcan and Earth are the 2 newcomers. Welcome to the family. Okay, so anyway, that being said, we are looking at the same planets and we are looking at the same chart as our personality or exoteric astrology. The only difference is that we're going to be viewing them differently from a soul perspective, from a higher perspective, okay? And from that soul perspective, from that soul point of view, we are going to be having new governors for each of the signs, okay? So once someone has evolved from their personality astrology, from what someone would consider to be the birth chart or the natal chart, that is their general personality. Now we are elevating to their soul, okay? So if the soul were to have a personality or a mission, this would kind of get into that a little bit there, okay? So someone who is operating from a soul perspective is not going to be acting the same way as if they were operating from a personality perspective, because the consciousness has elevated, okay? So now we have the evolved traits of that sign, and we also have different rulers, okay, which are governing the evolved traits of that sign. And this is not to say that someone who is operating from a personality level is unevolved or whatever. That is definitely not what I'm saying, okay? Because anyone can be evolved whenever they choose to be, okay? Whether they're operating from a 3rd dimensional, 4th dimensional, 5th dimensional, and so on, okay? That has nothing to do with it. But typically when we are talking about esoteric astrology, this is the more evolved features of that sign and of that planet, okay? Not about the individual itself, okay? Because that would be where personality astrology lies. That lies with the individual persona, okay? So now, as more of a spiritual standpoint in esoteric astrology, we have different governors, okay? And the first governor of esoteric rulership is going to be Mercury over Aries. The second governor, esoteric rulership, is going to be Vulcan over Taurus. The third esoteric governor is going to be Venus over Gemini. The fourth esoteric governor is going to be Neptune over Cancer. The fifth esoteric governor is going to be the Sun over Leo. The sixth esoteric governor is going to be the Moon over Virgo. The 7th esoteric governor is going to be Uranus over Libra. The 8th esoteric governor is going to be Mars over Scorpio. The 9th esoteric governor is going to be the Earth over Sagittarius. The 10th esoteric governor is going to be Saturn over Capricorn. The 11th esoteric governor is going to be Jupiter over Aquarius. The 12th esoteric governor is going to be Pluto over Pisces. Okay, so now as we notice, we added 2 new planets. Some of the governors over the signs stayed the same as in personality astrology, exoteric astrology, and most of them changed. Okay, so we are going to get into what these planets mean for each of those signs. And keep involved, we're talking about a soul level, okay, because that's what esoteric astrology is. This is someone who has they are fully aware that they have a personality, but they are also aware that they have a consciousness, which is a soul, which is always attached to them, but not necessarily what the personality stipulates, okay? So I'm gonna try to keep this video as short as I can because I could talk about astrology for years and eons at a time. So first we're gonna start off with Aries, esoteric governor being Mercury, okay? So what does Mercury mean for the sign of Aries when we look at it from an esoteric viewpoint? Now, Mars is known in Aries, or to govern Aries as a sign, as being very temperamental, very foolhardy, sometimes reckless. They are someone who is very dominating. They are projecting their own personality. They're projecting their own will very, very strongly. This is someone who looks without leaping more often than not. This is someone who is very strong-willed. This is someone who goes after what they want without questioning it or thinking about it, okay? So when Mercury takes over, right, after the Aries placement has evolved to a soul level of Aries, so in esoteric astrology, Mercury governing over Aries would be more of an analytical mind rather than someone who is very visceral in taking action, okay? They're going to take action mentally first, and that action is going to be the propulsion, that quickness, that speed that Mars indicates with Aries, okay? Only now it's going to be thought out. And you might think that Mars and Mercury have a lot in common, and they do, because they are both inner planets. They both are working with impulsivity. They want things now, okay? The only difference is that when Mercury is filtered down through the Mars and into that personality, Mercury is now bestowing a thought process before actually looking without leaping. So it'll be more of an intuitive. If someone is operating at a soul level, their Aries placements now governed by Mercury, or always governed by Mercury, but just now they're being realized. This person, wherever they have Aries in their chart, it still might be impulsive action, but it's only going to be thought out, and it's going to be more intuitive, okay? So this is not someone who is just going to appear reckless. This is going to be someone who appears as being in the right spot at the right time, always, okay? And just snap decisions are going to work very, very well for this person, because now their immediate thought, which is coming from their soul, which a thought is, you know, a knowing that is translated into, I guess, verbiage, right? That is coming forth, and now as it is being filtered through Mercury, being displayed through Mars, it's like, well, this is a good idea. Yes, you have that clarity of that thought that's telling you, yes, this is a good idea, because they've rationalized it in their mind almost instantaneously. And now when they take action, it is going to be coming from their higher self, which is going to yield greater benefits than if there was no thought associated with that action, okay? So that is really the difference between Mercury governing Aries and Mars governing Aries. Esoterically, Taurus is ruled by Vulcan, okay? And exoterically, in traditional personality astrology, Taurus is ruled by Venus. So with the Taurus and Venus, there is a tendency to fall into the lap of luxury. This is someone who can be either overly fixated on material things or just excessively lazy in the material realm, okay? This is someone who wants the finer things in life and wants to live their best life, and can be at times haughty and demanding over those things, okay? So also with Taurus and the Venus governance over Taurus is that this person likes to live in the lap of luxury. They are someone who likes to acquire fine things. They are someone that is very comfortable with material possessions, okay? They might not prioritize it, but they like to have it. And they're about, this is mine, I did that, I made that, I started this is mine. It can be a bit possessive, okay? So now going into Vulcan, okay? So as I mentioned, sometimes Venus dictating over Taurus can become a little bit lazy, okay? It can become a little indolent. And Vulcan now being filtered down and then transmuting its rays into Venus, into Taurus, this is a planet which, number one, Vulcan is a planet that is a hypothetical planet. It is perceived as being the closest planet to the sun. So if you think as Mercury is the closest planet, it would be in between Mercury and the sun. So it's smack in the middle of that, okay? So now this makes it a very, very personal planet. More so than Mercury, in the fact that Vulcan, with its personal agenda, is going to take action faster than Mercury. It's going to be more hot-headed as compared to Mercury, and displaying itself in Taurus is also someone who is going to stand up for themselves, okay? They're not going to take shit from anybody. They are going to be someone who is authoritative and dominating, okay? And this is more of a force to be reckoned with rather than Venus, okay? So when Taurus placements have evolved into the realm of the esoteric, into that realm where they're functioning at their full Vulcan, this is not going to be someone who is going to be dismissive of performing earthly tasks. This is not going to be someone who is unwilling to work for the finer things that they so desire. This is going to be someone who is actually going to take action immediately. Now, Vulcan being a personal planet, Vulcan being a hypothetical planet, okay, because Vulcan is believed to be in another dimension, which those on Earth, right, in a human bodysuit, are just not able to see yet with their physical eyes, but they can feel its presence, okay, because it's a very, very high vibrating planet. And this planet with that passion, it's really calling forth your will, okay, in your personal realm, okay? So as Taurus is a personal sign in the zodiac, Vulcan is a personal planet, and this is really the exertion and the full expression of your soul energy here on this planet at this time, okay? This is someone who is not going to back down. They are saying, I know who I am, but it's deeper than I know who I am in my body. It's I know who I am as a soul. So the Taurus placements being governed by Vulcan, being transmitted through Venus, this is going to be someone that seems to have the Midas touch, okay? This is going to be someone who with their Taurus placements, they are going to know what they want. They're going to go after it. And there's still a little bit of that bull mentality of the Taurus, like, what? This is mine? Now what? But it's going to be more forceful yet smooth, okay? Because Vulcan, I'm seeing as a smooth planet, even though it's like boiling and it's passionate, right? It's sort of like Vulcan is Mars mixed with Venus, okay, if that makes sense, with a little bit of Mercury, and that's just what came in now. It's Mars mixed with Venus with a little bit of Mercury, okay? So it's smooth, it's forceful, it's passionate, but it's also quick because it is the closest to the sun, okay? So they're going to be someone who just, they see a crowded parking lot and there's one empty spot and they have a huge SUV, but you know what, they slid into that spot perfectly on the first try, okay? So this is someone who is very agile and very adept in their physical realm because they are willing things into their experience, and their action is being taken not from a point where, well, I want it to show it off to others. This is action being taken by their soul, like, I deserve this and I'm going to stand my ground. So Gemini being ruled by Venus in esoteric astrology is different from Gemini being ruled by Mercury in traditional personality astrology. And the difference here with Gemini and Venus is that when Venus dictates over Gemini, there isn't so much of that quick-witted impulsiveness, okay? Because Venus operating at a soul level, at an esoteric level, is going to be showing the traits of Gemini through a beautiful filter, okay? So there might be some impulsivity, there might be some quick-witted banter, but it's never going to seem tacky or tasteless, okay? So Mercury ruling over Gemini in personality astrology, this is someone who's very quick, they have a very sharp tongue, and even though they are very intellectual and aware of themselves, that Gemini placement, because it's so quick to say something or write something, okay, their like intellect, their verbiage, their language, right, they're so quick to just jump on that bandwagon of like linguistics in the physical realm. Venus is the overseer of that, and they're saying, wait a second, but you can say it smoother. You can say it so that it goes over better. You don't need to just be impulsive. You can say something with tact, okay? So Venus essentially, from an esoteric perspective, is lending that tact and diplomacy to Gemini placements, okay? So wherever you have a Gemini placement and someone is operating from their esoteric point of view, from their soul point of view, you're going to notice a Venusian type of blend there, okay? It's going to mix with Mercury, and it might be fast, but it might be someone who is trying to, you know, they see a long line outside the club and it's like -5 degrees out, and they're just that person who's going to go up to the bouncer who's letting everyone in, and they're going to say something really quick, fast, smooth, and charming, and they get let in the club immediately, okay? I know I'm using like pretty interesting metaphors here, but that's like really the best way that I can describe this information. So that is how Venus is going to be displayed from an esoteric perspective in the sign of Gemini. So Cancer in esoteric astrology is governed by Neptune, and Neptune is similar to the moon because they are both very psychically inclined. The only difference here is that Neptune, from an esoteric perspective, is a more global type of planet, whereas the moon is a personal celestial body, because the moon is not a planet, okay? So we're looking at Cancer being displayed as not someone who is taking things personally, right? When someone is in that personality Cancer bubble, when they are being governed by the moon, it can have a tendency to make everything about them. It can they can tend to manipulate emotionally things that already went on before. They'll maybe manipulate it to their advantage or disadvantage, depending on how you want to look at it. This is someone who is definitely more inclined to be governed by emotions, okay? This is someone who, the Cancer placement being ruled by the moon in exoteric astrology, is going to be someone who takes things more personally and who tends to be more governed by their personal emotions about a thing, rather than that Neptune esoteric quality where they're governed more by their whole view of the entire scene, okay? So these two are very emotional, Moon and Neptune. However, when Neptune is functioning fully and then governing down and transmitting to the moon, which is in turn transmitting to the sign of Cancer, this is going to be something with more of an overseer perspective on emotions, okay? So there might be emotions, there might be sensitivities, okay? Also extreme psychic ability, but it's going to be more from a collective consciousness standpoint rather than, I didn't like that, why that happened. It's to be more like, oh, I see why that had to happen, okay? So you see that broadening of the emotions, you see that that expansiveness, you see that kind of camaraderie with the whole. Where Cancer is being governed by the moon, they are going to be, because remember the moon is very, very personal, it actually revolves around the earth, so it's very, very inner. These are going to be emotions that might be actually detrimental to those Cancer placements, whereas like being governed by Neptune, it's kind of taking the moon and it's saying, wait, look here, let me show you the whole picture. Do you take it personally now? It's sort of asking something in a philosophical way, okay? So emotions are viewed more as philosophical rather than personal. Now, Leo in esoteric astrology is governed by the sun. Leo in exoteric or personality astrology is also governed by the sun, okay? So nothing has changed here aside from the evolution of the sun, okay? So now, Leo placement from an exoteric point of view are going to be very different than Leo placements from an esoteric point of view, okay? Even though it's the same celestial body, which is the sun, there is going to be sun unevolved operating from personality level and sun evolved operating from soul level, okay? So characteristics of the sun, sometimes egotistical, it can also be very scorching and burning, okay? It can be very centered on the self, and it's very interested in putting on a show. Okay, so now if you take these same traits and you look at them from a Leo placement operating from a soul level, it's going to be that still confidence, that vivaciousness, that energy, right, that Leo is known for, but it's going to be more like, look at me, because I can see on a larger scale that by you looking at me, it's actually helping you. So it's more of that we consciousness, whereas the sun governing Leo from a personality astrological perspective is more of that me consciousness. Okay, so the sun from an esoteric perspective is saying, well, you know what, I have all these friends, or I have all these followers, and I have all this attention. Let me use my platform to try to better everyone as a whole, trying to better society as a whole. You're already looking at me, but it's not even about me anymore. So there's still that pride, okay, that the sun is very noted for, but it's more of a pride in what they're doing for others rather than just being noticed on their own self. Okay, so it's a very different level of confidence and self-assertion. Now, the sun governing Leo from a soul perspective is also things want to gravitate towards it. Okay, so from a soul perspective, the sign of Leo being governed by the sun and then being governed by the sun, it's sort of opening the eyes of that placement to, listen, this is not all about you. Yes, you have all of this and all of that, but are you really satisfied within yourself? Because remember, the sun is also known as the ruler of the ego. Okay, so this is where someone is going to break free from that ego, and they're going to transition into knowing that they've accumulated their vastness and their notoriety or whatever, but now they're like, that doesn't really satisfy me. You know, I want to do something for someone else. So it's more of that giving rather than just attention being bestowed upon it. Okay, because an evolved sun perspective from an esoteric level is going to want to warm up everyone. Okay, because the sun also warms up. You know, it creates things to grow. So this is going to be someone who wants others to grow as well as wanting themselves to grow. So someone who is operating from the sun's standpoint of a Leo placement is going to be more like, I want to light myself up, I want to be lit so I can be seen. Whereas someone who is operating from an esoteric perspective, the sun governing over Leo, that placement is going to be more like, I'm already lit up, so now I want to light you up. Okay, so it's sort of like lighting the second candle without their flame going out in the process. Okay, so that's really what an esoteric version of the sun in Leo would indicate. So now we are moving along into Virgo. Now the esoteric ruler of Virgo is the moon. The exoteric ruler of Virgo is Mercury. Okay, so this is a change in the sense that the moon in esoteric astrology is considered something that is somewhat stagnant, okay, and it's something that needs to be released. Now, the reason why this rules Virgo is because Virgo is very analytical, very thought-focused, and being governed by Mercury with that earth quality tends to be very fixed in their own thoughts, sometimes to the point where that Virgo placement, wherever it is being governed by Mercury, their thoughts will take them and kind of run off, right? Now the moon is also emotions, but it's about what you need to release, and many times the thoughts that a lot of us have stem from emotions. Okay, so with the moon in esoteric astrology being essentially something that's standing, something that is only being illuminated by other things, this displayed in the sign of Virgo is saying on a soul level that now you have the wherewithal to recognize that the things and the thoughts that you perceive to be real were really just reflections from elsewhere. They're not real in and of themselves. Okay, so the moon operating from an esoteric standpoint filtering down into Mercury, filtering down into the sign of Virgo. This is where things are being released, okay? And once something is released emotionally, there are not going to be any more thoughts about it. Therefore, making that Mercury in the personality astrology of Virgo become more peaceful, okay? Because Virgo is Earth, and Earth is grounded and stable. It's a material realm sign because obviously it is indicating, you know, the material realm itself. It's Earth. So in this sign, a lot of things can become stuck and stagnant in the etheric body, but once that Virgo placement, whatever it is fully operating from that moon in esoteric astrology perspective, now it's seeing, well, I was thinking those thoughts, but what was I feeling, okay? Because the sign of Virgo tends to not be big on feeling things, okay? Of course, Virgo, the sign, you know, everyone has feelings, right? But this is someone who is more likely to conduct like an experiment or a formula. They're like, well, I thought that, and at that time I was feeling that, so what does that mean? It's more like they're trying to figure out a logical way when feelings essentially have no logic. So the moon coming in is going to dismantle that. It's going to dismantle the things that the Mercury, that the Virgo was holding on to, okay, in that area. And this is going to come about in a way where it's in tune emotionally, so you're going to be able to kind of see everything that was being reflected off of that moon energy, and you're going to be able to analyze it from that evolved mercurial standpoint, like, oh wow, well I felt that way because of that, not because I felt that way, but because something that occurred that I was witness to was illuminated by the moon, and now I have the thought process that knowing from Mercury that I see it really wasn't about me. And that's how the moon operates from an esoteric vantage point with the sign of Virgo governing. Now, Libra in esoteric astrology is governed by Uranus, and in exoteric astrology is governed by Venus. So how it expresses itself, the sign of Libra, from a soul point of view is Uranus is going to come down and transmit its rays towards Venus, which essentially you're saying that yes, it's amazing to be fair and justified, but it's also beneficial to stand up for your own individuality and not be so concerned with what the other is thinking or feeling towards you, okay? So now Libra, from an exoteric perspective, from the personality perspective, being ruled by Venus, the sign of Libra is someone who is very justified, and this is also someone who can be somewhat passive with their own assertiveness and their own wants and needs, okay? Because the tendency to want to please others and to always be under the good graces with others might lead them to neglect things about their own individuality that they should really be excelling at and be exerting more willfully, okay? So Uranus coming down and intermingling with the qualities of Venus for the sign of Libra esoterically, this is going to mean that yes, you can get along with everyone and you can be fair and you can be justified, but you're also going to be in a place where you are an individual and you've accepted your own individuality. So no matter what anyone says or does or thinks, it is going to be irrelevant to you. Even if it is directed at you, Uranus is symbolizing, listen, you can direct whatever you want at me, but that's not going to change who I am, okay? So it's that self-assuredness, that assertion with their own self rather than that of partnership, which Venus for the sign of Libra in exoteric personality astrology is very concerned with the other or the partner or somewhere that's outside of them, okay? Whereas the Uranus, it is still overseeing Venus and it's saying, yes, it's good to be justified, but listen, not at the detriment of your own personal willpower. So Uranus, when it's conveyed esoterically through Venus and then through the sign of Libra, Libra placements are going to take on a more of an individuality based approach rather than a more mindset that is someone who doesn't want to rock the boat. This is going to be someone who is very self-assured in what they stand for, and if they rock the boat, it doesn't matter, everyone else can get off it, right? This is not someone who is going to pacify anyone else. This is not someone who is going to be nice just for the sake of not creating an argument if they feel any type of way that might be considered rude towards someone else. This is someone who is going to assert themselves, and this is going to be someone who is going to say, yes, you disrespected me, therefore I'm going to not deal with you again and move on to my own devices. But this is not someone who is going to stick around just because it is considered the right thing to do or the moral thing to do, because Uranus, operating from that soul perspective, is saying the right thing to do and the moral thing to do is always to prioritize your own self, because when one is too concerned with others, then they are actually neglecting themselves. And it's great to be concerned with the other, okay, because that shows compassion and caring. But Uranus here is basically saying, listen, if you don't take care of yourself and stand up for your beliefs and your knowings and your individuality, then you're going to actually be allowing others to take from you, and then you're going to end up depleted. So Uranus, from an esoteric viewpoint, coming through Venus and then imparting its characteristics and traits into Libra, this is going to be someone who is very fair and justified in their actions, but they're also not willing to put up with other people's bullshit, essentially. So that is what Uranus means, governing the sign of Libra in esoteric astrology. Now, Scorpio in esoteric astrology is ruled by Mars, and in traditional personality astrology, Scorpio is also ruled by Mars slash Pluto. So somewhat of a change here, but not really, depending on if you really view Scorpio as being ruled by Mars or Pluto. For me, my view is that I associate Scorpio with Pluto, so definitely, you know, whatever works for you, that works for you. But Mars governing Scorpio from an esoteric perspective is going to be very driven, very focused, more into doing a physical action rather than being in that emotional, that inner boiling, okay? Like Pluto is very, it's very transformative, and Pluto is very revolutionary, as is the sign of Scorpio. However, it can be very concerned with the overall perspective, and that's why sometimes a Pluto or a Scorpio type of energy is someone who keeps things inside, and it'll be like one day they just snapped and no one had no idea what was going on. It was like a ticking time bomb that no one saw ticking. Whereas Scorpio being ruled by Mars from an esoteric perspective, now we're taking the assertive action and the momentum and the drive of Mars, and we're imparting it into Pluto, and then through Pluto, and then through the sign of Scorpio, okay? So Scorpio being governed by Mars esoterically is going to assert itself right away, but also because it has to go through Pluto, this is going to be something that is a cause that this individual feels passionately about, okay, wherever that Scorpio placement is placed, because it has to, the Plutonian drive for passion is going to actually work with Mars, and Mars is will and expression, and it's more personal, okay? So we're going to take Pluto and then we're going to personalize it a little bit, and then we're going to add a little bit of energetic propulsion, and then that's how Scorpio is governed by Mars esoterically. So this is someone who is really, when they're standing up for a cause, a group cause, or a universal type of consciousness. So Mars coming through, going down into Pluto, and then showing off basically in the sign of Scorpio. This is going to be that person who is very dedicated to their cause. They're very dedicated to asserting a physical change in their environment, okay? They're very good at transforming situations, and they're very good at riding things out to a successful outcome, okay? Because Mars by itself in personality astrology is really, it kind of starts in many different directions and then gets bored and then goes in another direction, right? But with that Mars governing Pluto, and then Pluto also giving some energy to Mars there with that Scorpio energy, it's going to be something that's lasting, okay? Because it's seeing the bigger picture from an emotional viewpoint, and they're realizing it, and they're realizing that they need to take action through the guided steps of Mars, okay? And on a soul level, esoteric astrology level, Mars is a warrior. This is someone who is going to stand up for the other person. This is going to be someone who's going to stand up for a cause. This is going to be the protector. This is going to be the defender. This is going to be an aspect of the soul that there is a concern for others, and it's not going to be walked on by anyone else because they feel so strongly and they feel that desire and they feel that they need to be the change they wish to see, which sounds very, very cliche, but that's really what it is, because it's that Plutonian energy, and then it's kind of being driven by Mars, which Mars is taking a step into the physical realm and saying, listen, don't just feel emotionally about this, don't just sit and stew in those emotions. Now you can take productive and proactive assertions in your physical realm to stand up for that group environment, for that group cause. So that is what Mars means for Scorpio from an esoteric point of view. Now, Sagittarius, from an esoteric point of view, is ruled by the planet Earth, okay? So this one is very, very interesting because Earth is obviously where we are residing. I mean, at least I'm gonna go on the off chance that maybe some of you aren't, maybe you're on another planet, I don't know, but I'm assuming most of us here are on the planet Earth right now in our physical realm, okay? So this is our physical domain. So Sagittarius is traditionally in personality astrology ruled by Jupiter, and this is expansion. This is a jovial buoyancy, and that just like came through because that's what Jupiter is, jovial buoyancy, right? This is someone who is the eternal optimist. This is someone who is an idealist. This is someone who is very over the top, okay? They can have an eccentricity to them in the fact that they're doing what they want to do, and they're making a big show out of it. They're making a big production out of it, okay? And they're expanding their horizons whenever and wherever they choose to, right? And wherever they can. So now, Earth, obviously, since this represents where most of us are residing in our physical domain, and it also is very grounded because it is the planet Earth, right? But Earth also contains all of the other elements, okay? It contains earth, it contains water, it contains fire, it contains air, okay? So this is essentially everything you need. So these are essentially all the components of someone who is well-rounded, okay? So Sagittarius, being governed by Earth from an esoteric standpoint, Earth is now going to be coming down, bestowing its graces upon Jupiter, which is in turn going to be benefiting the sign of Sagittarius as a whole. So Sagittarius placements in someone's chart, when they are being looked at from the soul perspective, esoteric astrology perspective, this is going to be someone who is very intent on being that essential wanderer, being that essential traveler, okay, here on Earth, which is why Sagittarius, the sign in itself, is known of being the wanderer or the traveler, okay, because they want to expand. They don't really have a plan, right? Because Jupiter kind of just, whoop, it just goes with the flow. It's not really set in stone. It just figures that once it starts moving, that the path will be paved for them, okay? Because it's that eternal optimism, okay? So also with Jupiter, you can have that overconfidence, that overexpansion, that moving very, very fast in so many different directions that it's sometimes even hard to keep up with oneself, right? Earth is going to come in from an esoteric viewpoint because it is very grounded and stable. It's Earth, it has all the elements, and plus that is the material realm where, as I said, most of us are living out our physical experiences in our day-to-day lives. So Earth coming in through, it's going to be telling Jupiter, yes, I can see that you expand in all these different directions, and it's great to have confidence in yourself, and it's great to go with the flow, and it's great to pave your own way. But Earth is also giving some guidance in the sense that there is some reckless abandonment that is associated with Jupiter and the sign of Sagittarius. So Earth is going to come in and sort of ground that and stabilize that, okay? So an example of that would be if someone is governed by Jupiter, Sagittarius placements in personality astrology, they're going to be someone who just shows up at the airport 5 minutes before the flight, expecting to get on the plane without a passport or even have purchasing a ticket. They're just going to be so in that I want to travel here and I'm going to go there, and you know, they have that confidence in themselves, but they didn't really think things through. They just kind of showed up and expected things to mold around them, okay? Earth is saying that's great that you have that confidence in yourself, but you know what? Maybe you could have purchased your ticket the day before and then went to the airport, right? It doesn't have to be a week before, it doesn't have to be a month before. Earth is just there, it's grounded, it has all the elements, you know, air, fire, water, earth, okay? And it's just saying, it's like, listen, you know what? It's gonna give that little nudge, like, yes, I see your optimism, Jupiter. I see that you want to go everywhere, you want to travel everywhere on a whim, on the drop of a hat, whatever. But you know what? Let's buy the ticket the day before. Let's not just show up to the airport unexpectedly and then just expect to get on a flight, right? So it's going to tone down Jupiter a little bit, but it's not going to tone it down to the extent where it's going to stifle Jupiter, because remember, Earth is operating from that esoteric viewpoint now. So it kind of already has all of the elements combined, right? So it's already formulated in the physical realm, and then Jupiter, right, because they have that intuition, that Jupiter intuition, and they have that optimism, their higher self is really going to tell them, yes, all of the elements are here, everything is present, everything is set up for you to go. Now, like, it just gives you that nudge, okay, move in this direction, and then Jupiter moves in that direction. So Earth is really the energy that, I use the analogy where I said someone with Jupiter is just going to walk and expect the path to be paved in front of them as they go. Earth is giving them that intuitive nudge in the right direction where things are already formulated. So Jupiter is going to actually see that path being formed like as they're walking, but they might not be consciously aware of it. Earth is going to kind of be that lighthouse, that beacon that's saying, yes, all the elements are here, you should step forward. And Jupiter is going to know intuitively which way to expand in, because Earth is guiding it and saying, listen, in this way, I know you, Jupiter, I know you. You just want to go wherever you want to go, whenever you want to go. You want to expand, you want to wander around, you want to travel, you want to do whatever you want. But you know what? This is a path that is of least resistance. This is the clear road. Here we go. And from that perspective, the Earth is stabilizing Jupiter in the sense that Jupiter is going to move, but the Earth is pulling it. It's drawing it to it, okay? So it is going to seem like someone is moving on the uncharted territory, on that off the beaten path, but because they got that nudge from the esoteric, from their soul standpoint of Earth, they did move in the direction that was already formulated by their higher self for them to move into, okay? So that is how Earth is displayed through Jupiter in the sign of Sagittarius. Now, Capricorn, ruled by Saturn in esoteric astrology and in personality exoteric astrology, nothing really changed there, right? Aside from the fact that Saturn operates differently from a personality perspective and from an esoteric soul type of perspective, okay? So Saturn operating, governing Capricorn from that personality perspective is going to be someone who is very set in their ways. This is going to be the characteristics of following the rules and wanting to have all their ducks in a row and having their egg baskets lined up perfectly so that none of the eggs break. And this is someone who can be guarded and cautious Also very reliable and dependable, right? But sometimes maybe a little too stubborn and stuck in their ways. So now as we progress, Saturn, right, is the planet of karma, okay? And in the overseer perspective, the soul perspective, what Saturn means is this is the right thing to do for your greatest benefit, okay? So a difference between Capricorn being ruled by Saturn from a personality perspective versus an esoteric perspective is going to be someone who is operating from Saturn via a personality perspective. Is going to be someone who is very rigid. They're just doing things because they feel like they have to, right? They don't really want to do it. They don't see a benefit of doing it aside from the fact that, well, gotta do it. This is what I gotta do, so I'm gonna do it, right? And they'll plow through, okay? And that steadfastness, it's a very good quality to have, but not when it's detrimental to the personality itself, okay? Because the soul is seeing all this and it's saying, well, listen, you don't really need to line up your books in alphabetical order every single night. Some nights they can be, Z can come first, and then V can come, and then B, and then X, or whatever, right? So someone who's operating from Saturn from an esoteric perspective is going to see that, right? Because remember, they're viewing things from that soul consciousness, okay? Not just the constructs of the personality. And Saturn here is knowing, well, this is going to benefit you over time if you keep doing that, right? So it'll guide you, or it'll guide that placement wherever Saturn or Capricorn is. It's going to guide the individual to something that's going to benefit them in the long term, right? Rather than something that is short term, because this is the way it has to be done, because I was taught it's supposed to be this way and I'm going to follow the rules. And Saturn is saying, you know what? You don't need to line up your books perfectly alphabetically every night. You are better off doing something else, right? You are better off also doing something productive and that's going to benefit you, but it might be reading one of those books instead of lining them up, okay? Or it might be saying something like, yes, we want to have everything resolved and everything be neutral, and we want to be responsible, and we want to stand up for ourselves, and we want to know that everything actually is all connected on a karmic level, okay? So Saturn from this perspective might give some guidance like, listen, if you read chapter 12 today instead of chapter 1, it's going to benefit you more in the future, because maybe the next day you're going to forget your book at home and you're not going to be able to go back to pick it up for a week. So you needed to know chapter 12 before you needed to know chapter 1 for whatever life lesson you're currently experiencing, okay? And I don't mean in a way that it's a major life lesson, okay? Because you can have a life lesson where if you didn't turn on your TV at that certain time, you wouldn't have seen a message that maybe a spirit guide had for you on the screen through a commercial or through a movie or whatever, right? So Saturn is there and it's guiding you steadily, but it's not guiding you with the mundane. It's guiding you to a more spiritual path, because Saturn is an interpersonal planet, and interpersonal planets are really the conduit betwixt the personal inner realm and the universal outer realm, or vice versa, okay? Because the microcosm and the macrocosm, they're intertwinable, they're interchangeable, okay, if that makes sense. So this is what Saturn means from an esoteric perspective and an exoteric perspective through the sign of Capricorn. So Aquarius, from an esoteric viewpoint, is governed by the planet Jupiter, okay? Whereas in exoteric astrology, personality astrology, Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. And so Aquarius being ruled by Uranus can be very individualist, very rebellious, very go against the grain, very, I'm gonna do what I want when I want, and you know, fuck everything, fuck everyone, it's just me, okay? And it can sometimes be cutting off avenues, right, when it could actually be building avenues, okay? So Uranus, from a personality perspective, can be very innovative and very intellectual and very intuitive. However, it can tend to isolate itself, okay? So when Jupiter comes in from an esoteric soul perspective, and then now it's kind of being filtered through Uranus into the sign of Aquarius, then Jupiter is saying, listen, you have all this knowledge, you have all this independence, you do what you want. People kind of see you as an individual or an anarchist, or, you know, just someone who's very avant-garde and doesn't do what everyone else does, right? So that that coldness, that emotional isolation, right? Because they're very in their thoughts and things like that. Jupiter is coming in because it wants to expand, and Jupiter is a great benefic, okay? So this planet coming in is essentially telling Uranus, like, listen, you're wonderful and amazing, your independent self, but you know what? Let me take that, let me market you a little bit, right? That's what Jupiter is essentially doing with Uranus through the sign of Aquarius from like that esoteric perspective. Jupiter's coming in and he's like, you know, I like your style, I like what you have, but no one's seeing it because you isolated yourself, right? So Jupiter is going to come in, he's going to market you a little bit, and he's going to be like, you know, get out there. Even if you just walk down the street one day in your wildest crazy outfit, like sipping tea from a legit like teacup with a little saucer, and you're just walking in the middle of the street sipping tea like that, by all means do it, but get out there and show your magic to the world and the universe as a whole, okay? So expressed through the sign of Aquarius, Jupiter is going to come in with that. It's going to be seemingly lucky, okay? Even though there's really no such thing as luck, but it's going to come in because it has that optimism, it has that bravado, it has that confidence. It's going to come in and to say, hey Uranus, come here. No one's seeing you over there. Let's put the spotlight on you a little bit. Let's share your knowledge. Let's share your intuitive insights with others, okay? And this is also why the sign of Aquarius has that that friendliness type of stigma associated with it, right? Because it's like that sign can be seen as someone who is cool with everyone but really close to none, right? So Jupiter is coming in here and saying, listen, you know, you got to get out there, you have to show your magic to everyone else, okay? Because if you have all of this this information but you're not sharing it, then that's not really what a soul wants to see, because the soul is about everyone and everything as a collective, because it's seeing it from that overseer standpoint, and it's saying, listen, you can help others to be individuals themselves, but not if you're just alone, like in your room the entire day, right? Okay, if you're just cooped up, you know, doing your own thing by yourself, no one's going to see you. No one is going to actually get to experience and have respect for the things that you're saying, because they don't really know who you are, because you're not letting yourself be seen. And Jupiter is coming in as that PR representative, which is like, listen, you know what? Let's do this. Like, I got you, you know, I see what you're about. I'm not trying to change you. I just want to show your point of views and your style and your signature to everyone else as a whole, okay? So this is what this planet of Jupiter means through Uranus in the sign of Aquarius, esoterically speaking. Now, Pisces, esoterically, is governed by Pluto, okay? And in exoteric personality astrology, Pisces is governed by Neptune. So the difference here is that, well, actually, I'll start the similarity. The similarity is that both of these planets are outer planets, okay? They're like the furthest from the sun in our solar system. And yes, Pluto in astrology is still considered a planet, even though in astronomy it is not. So Pluto, astrologically speaking, and Neptune are both the two outer, right? So someone with those Piscean characteristics with that Neptune, it's very easy and breezy, it's daydreamy, it's very intuitive, okay? It very much picks up on the undercurrents of people, places, situations around them, okay? There's a high level of psychic ability and mediumship here, but it also can be somewhat unstable, okay? Because there's no real drive and assertion to Neptune. Neptune is just the universal receiver, okay? So it's constantly receiving information, it's constantly receiving feedback on an emotional level from its environment. And Pluto, from that esoteric viewpoint, right? That broader range, because esoteric is further out on the scope than personality astrology. Pluto is saying, listen, you're doing great, you have all this psychic ability, but you're all over the place. What direction are you going? You kind of just fizzle, and then you dissolve into yourself, and then you like spread somewhere else, and then you like, it's very, very nebulous, okay? And I think I use this word a lot when describing Neptune. Like, Neptune is just very nebulous. It's sort of like floating. It's just here, it's there, it's everywhere, and it disappears and it reappears. Like, it's kind of a foggy ground to be in, okay? So Pluto is coming in, and Pluto is the reformer. Pluto, from an esoteric level, governing Pisces, is utilizing that high, extreme psychic ability, that psychic energy, right? That universal energy. And it's saying, you know what? We're going to have a revolution over this, because you, on your own level of subconscious picking things up, you on your own level are a mastermind of that, okay? But you have no direction. So let me step in and give you a little direction. What is it that you feel the most passionately about, right? Because Pluto is really narrowing it down, right? Because Pluto is like a sniper rifle, okay, on a global scale. It's like, it's taking information and it's seeing what it feels the most passionately about, what resonates for it, and then it's honing in and it's saying, okay, you know what, I feel passionately about this, therefore I'm going to make an outer change about this this whatever it is I feel passionately about. And it could be anything, right? So to give an example with this Pisces, through personality astrology Neptune, and then through esoteric astrology Pluto, this would be Pisces placements might have a lot of strong emotions regarding something, but they're unsure of what to do with them, because the emotions can be coming and going. They're very fleeting. They're not very stable in the sense that it's directed in one direction, okay? So Pluto is going to come in with this Neptune energy, and it's gonna say, I'm sensing what you are feeling most passionately about, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to hone in on it for you, okay? Because Pluto from here is operating on a soul level, okay? So the soul obviously knows all, and the soul is going to give that fixed aim to the target that Neptune has in mind and what that Pisces placement has in mind, okay? It's going to say, listen, we can make a change here, but you have to be focused, and you can revolutionize whatever this is, a way of thinking, or even if it's just a paradigm, right? But it's going to be made on a universal level of consciousness, because both of these planets are universal, okay? So Pluto will come in and sit in the director chair, so to speak, and Neptune will be on the stage, and Pluto will come in with their big, I don't know, what was it, a megaphone? They'll come in with a megaphone. They'll say, okay, Neptune, you're doing amazing, you're doing great, I'm feeling your energy, but you know what? Move 3 steps to the light so that the spotlight can be on you, right? Because Neptune is kind of just wandering all over the stage. Pluto's like, no, 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 you stay put under that spotlight. So it's giving focus and direction and drive to that Neptune, okay? So that is what Pluto represents as the governor of Pisces through esoteric astrology, coming down through Neptune and then imparting its wisdom onto the sign of Pisces. So that's it for our esoteric astrology planetary breakdown. We went through all the signs and what the planets mean. And as always, it is our intention that those who are meant to receive messages here receive them well. Peace, good vibes, and namaste blessed, because you are.